Attention Harvey Park residents. This is a community notification of a new sexually violent predator in your area. Please stay tuned to the following short program for more information.
Hi, I'm Technician Ron Hackett with the Denver Police Department. The Sex Offender Registration and Compliance Unit at DPD is responsible for the registration, monitoring, and tracking of all registered sex offenders and sexually violent predators who live in the city and county of Denver. Here's a brief history of sex offender legislation in Colorado. Our state laws trickle down from federal government mandates. In 1994, we had the Jacob Wetterling Act, which mandated that states would establish a sex offender list. Megan's Law of 1996 said that the public would have access to those sex offender registration lists. The Pam Lichner Act of 1996 stated that some offenders might have to have lifetime registrations. And the Adam Walsh Act of 2006 unified sex offender laws across the country. In Colorado, the legislature has determined that sexually violent predators, by definition, pose a higher risk to the community at large, and therefore mandated that upon their release from the Department of Corrections, the community must be notified. Sex offender notification in Colorado happens in two ways. The first is passive and ongoing through the sex offender registration process, which is a list maintained by local police departments. The second way is active, via community notification for those offenders determined to be sexually violent predators by the courts or by the parole board. Most sex offenders in Colorado are supervised by the criminal justice system in our communities. Most sex offenders engage in crossover behavior, which means they may have been arrested for one type of crime, but be apt to commit another. Many sex offenders have no criminal history at all prior to their arrest. There is no typical sex offender, but all tend to be deceptive, manipulative, and secretive. 80 to 93% of sex offenses are committed by someone known to the victim. Sexual deviancy begins in mid to late adolescence. Sex offenses are not impulsive. They are usually carefully planned, and most sex offenders are male. The community has a vested interest in helping offenders to be successfully managed in the community. Sex offenders have the same need for housing and employment as any other citizen. Any citizen who uses sex offender information to harass, threaten, or intimidate an offender will be subject to criminal prosecution. There are approximately 16,500 registered sex offenders in the state of Colorado. About 65% of convicted sex offenders are placed in the community on probation. The remainder are in the Department of Corrections or Community Corrections. Offenders may be caught for one type of offense, but be at a high risk to commit another type. Crime of conviction is only one indicator of risk. A sexually violent predator must register with the Denver Police Department Sex Offender Registration Unit every 3 months for the rest of their life. The offender's residence must be verified quarterly by the Denver Police Department. The full sex offender registration list is available by calling the Denver Police Department Identification Bureau at 720-913-6756. Convicted felons and those with multiple convictions are posted online at denvergov.org/police. Remember, sexually violent predators do not represent all dangerous sex offenders. The community notification process and sex offender registration are not a complete deterrent to sexual assault. Now, here's a look at the newest sexually violent predator living in Denver.
Here's an overview of the registered sex offenders currently living in Denver. There are 2,401 total living within city limits. In Denver Police District 4, there are 447. Precinct 421 has 84 registered sex offenders. Of those, 58 have felony convictions and 26 have misdemeanor convictions. William Andrew Curtis is a sexually violent predator currently living in Denver. He's 66 years old and was born on February 28, 1959. He's a white male, 6 feet 3 inches tall, 207 pounds, with gray hair and blue eyes. He's currently living at 1932 South Hooker Circle in the Harvey Park neighborhood of Denver. Schools located within 1 mile of this offender: Charles M. Schenck Community School at 1300 South Lowell Boulevard, Excel Academy at 1825 South Federal Boulevard, Johnson Elementary at 1850 South Irving Street, Coons-Miller Creative Arts Academy at 2250 South Quitman Way, Compass Academy, Respect Academy, and Abraham Lincoln High School, all at 2285 South Federal Boulevard, Brown International Academy at 2550 Lowell Boulevard, Rocky Mountain Prep Federal and Rocky Mountain Prep Ruby Hill, both at 2626 West Evans Avenue, College View Elementary at 2675 South Decatur Street, Rocky Mountain Prep Westwood and Rocky Mountain Prep Smart, both at 3201 West Arizona Avenue, Gust Elementary at 3440 West Yale Avenue, Mountain View Child Care Center at 3939 West Florida Avenue, Denver Child Care Center at 3151 West Florida Avenue, Bambino's Child Care and Preschool at 1470 South Federal Boulevard, Little Einstein Academy at 3105 West Iowa Avenue. Parks located within 1 mile of this offender: Sanderson Gulch, Florida and Raritan, Garfield Lake Park, Harvard Gulch West, Athmar Park, Sanderson Gulch, Harvey Park, La Lomita Park, Godsman Park, Sanderson Gulch, Irving and Java. Recreation centers located within 1 mile of this offender: Athmar Rec Center at 2680 West Mexico Avenue, Harvey Park Rec Center at 2120 South Tennyson Way, College View Rec Center at 2525 South Decatur Street. Bus routes located within 1 mile of this offender: Routes 29, 30, 35, and 36, South Federal Boulevard and West Iliff Avenue, South Federal Boulevard and West Harvard Avenue, South Federal Boulevard and West Yale Avenue. Routes 30 and 35, West Yale Avenue and South Irving Street. Routes 29, 35, and 36, South Federal Boulevard and West Amherst Avenue. A brief history of sex offense-related convictions for this offender: first-degree sexual assault and sexual assault overcome victim's will. He's currently on parole and last registered with the Denver Police Department on August 25, 2025, to 1932 South Hooker Circle in the Harvey Park neighborhood of Denver. Additional charges against this offender include assault, domestic violence, driving under the influence, resisting arrest, trespassing, marijuana possession, dangerous drugs. William Andrew Curtis has been determined a sexually violent predator after meeting the following criteria. Criteria 1. Age 18 or older on the date of the offense, or under 18 and tried as an adult. The offender was age 51 at the time of the offense. Criteria 2. The crime must have been committed on or after July 1, 1997 and convicted on or after July 1, 1999. Crimes include sexual assault, felony unlawful sexual contact, sexual assault on a child by a person in a position of trust. The offender was convicted on August 25, 2009 for sexual assault overcome victim's will. Criteria 3. The relationship to the victim was one of the following: victim was a stranger to the offender, or the offender established or promoted a relationship with the victim primarily for the purpose of sexual victimization. The 29-year-old female victim was known to the offender. Criteria 4. Positive results or the passing of a risk assessment instrument administered by probation parole staff and a qualified treatment evaluator. Positive results include an assessment for the presence of a mental abnormality, a level of denial regarding the offense, treatment appropriateness and motivation, presence of sexual deviant interests. The offender was evaluated by the Adams County courts with positive results, determining him to be a sexually violent predator.